Victory Road has just hosted another massive online tournament for Regulation I, having over 260 players, and it was won by none other than the 2023 VGC World Champion, Shohei Kimura. Now, this is a pretty interesting event, right? We see one major thing here when we look at the top cut, right? Top cut here is like, yeah, 14 players. One major thing, and that is CSR plus fighting type goes Burrow. If you have a look down the list here, we see Shohei, obviously, the eventual winner of the event, running Cali Shadow with a Zamazenta. We see another one in second place. We see a Cali Shadow plus Moridon down here in 6th. And then, just down the bottom here, we just see, quite a bit more Cali Shadow plus Zamazenta. I believe that's like 5 of them. 5 Cali Shadow Zamazentas here in the top 14, which is pretty freaking crazy. We do see, some other, meta combos here. We see Moridon Cali Ice picking up, getting 2 in the top 8. Run here by Marco Fierro as well, one of the best players in the world, of course. And just a really interesting event, because there was a lot of really good combinations in this event. But you just see Cali Shadow just kind of dominating for the most part. Anyway, we'll quickly jump over here to the usage stats for this event. So, as you can see here, these here are the top 10 restricted combos, which is, once again, dominated by Cali Shadow. We see 4 Cali Shadows here. We see 2 Lunalas. We see 3 Moridons as well. Only 2 Zamazentas, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's one of those mons where I do think it's incredibly good, but obviously it's best paired with Cali Shadow. And I think that's kind of where it's going to, find its niche in this metagame, right? It's very good into opposing Cali Shadow. But I do think Lunala fits with more restricteds. It's just that, in particular, I think Cali Shadow right now is the best restricted. And of course, because of that, Zamazenta finds a really, really good place with it. Obviously, fighting type, being able to hit those dark and normal types, I think is super, super important. But when we look here, obviously, Cali Shadow Zamazenta, 15% usage in day 1. Our conversion rate here was fantastic. Obviously, it converted more than it was played in day 1 to day 2, which is fantastic. We see Moridon Lunala here. This is another combo that's been picking up quite a bit. And I think a big reason for that is it has a very positive matchup into Cali Shadow Zamazenta, right? Of course, you have Wide Guard coming out of your Lunala here, giving you ways to hit things. To potentially one-shot the Cali Shadow. You also have Wide Guard as well, really slowing it down. And a lot of the time, and if they are running a secondary move, it is normally a Psychic type attack, which of course you do resist. And things like Terra Fairy on this mon are also really, really good into this combo. You can go Terra Fairy, allowing you to still take those body presses, which normally don't hit you. Then you can eat any one attack from the Cali Shadow there and kind of just, threaten it with, again, a lot of damage. Because if they're Terra Ghost, obviously you can bop it there. And for things like Terra Dark, you have options like Moonblast. If you want, that could also pick that up. And of course, Moridon here, just fantastic. With Terra, can live any one attack coming out of the Cali Shadow. Obviously, naturally faster than the Zamazenta. You threaten the Zamazenta for big damage, and you threaten the Cali Shadow for big damage. So, definitely one of the better combos right now into the Cali Shadow Zamazenta, which is definitely something to keep an eye on. Of course, Moridon Cali Ice here. I think everyone knew this was probably going to be Moridon's best partner. I will say conversion rate here is really, really solid. We do see another Moridon on this. Oh, it's literally right underneath it. Moridon Lunala, obviously also getting quite a bit of play here, being 3rd and 4th. But the big difference here is the Cali Ice. The conversion rate went up from 12% to 14%. And then you see a big drop off here. Having probably, actually no, so having the 2nd worst conversion rate on the list. Only 1 of the 20 making day 2. Then we have Swordfish here as well. Now, I do believe this is incorrect, because if we actually go back here, actually no, I'm sorry, I read it wrong. I saw Sable VGC, I assumed it was Swordfish. I'm wrong. He has Cali Shadow. Ignore me. Yeah, conversion rate obviously very, very poor. I did find that kind of interesting. I do think Cali Shadow, Swordfish has a pretty decent matchup in some of the Cali Shadow teams, especially when they are run with things like Choice Scarf on the Urshifu. But yeah, I mean, obviously it didn't convert that well. Only time will tell. I do think this is still a good combination. I expect it to get better results than it showed here in this event. But potentially just some of the top players didn't bring it. But yeah, very, very shocked at the performances here from the Moridon, the Lunala, sorry, and Moridon and the Swordfish. But yeah, going back to Cali Ice and Moridon, I just think in terms of Trick Room stuff, this is, it's just a match made in heaven, right? You think about what Moridon does want to deal with, right? It's the ground types, it's the grass types. Cali Ice kind of eats them for breakfast, and then you think about what Cali Ice doesn't want to deal with, things like Kyogre, right? Of course, Moridon eats that for breakfast. I will say this core combo here in particular does struggle into Zacian. But of course, with things like Terra Electric potentially on Moridon, which has been rising up quite a bit, you're able to eat any one attack and threaten a one-shot if they aren't Terra Ground. And if I'm being honest, Terra Ground, I think it's kind of a throw. Like, I get it because you have, you have the Kyogre, but I don't know. Like, you Terra Ground this thing and then you just die to a Glacial Lance, and it just feels kind of bad. Moving over here, though, we have one of the best conversion rates here in day 2, which was the Cali Shadow Moridon. My personal favorite core to run right now. I have basically exclusively been playing these two together. I think they're incredible. I think it has a pretty positive matchup into the Cali Shadow balance stuff, especially if you pair it with something that has terrain block. We'll take a look through some of the teams shortly. But personally, I've been playing it with Indeedee. I've seen other people play it with Giraffe. So just ways to like block the priority moves coming out of things like Instant and Rilla just so they can't fake out cycle you. And then, you know, you just threaten massive damage with these two mons. It's obviously incredible. And again, the Zamazenta wants to be on a board where it can kind of click wide guard and protect its own Cali. But of course, when you have things like Koraidon, you kind of force the Terra. And then all of a sudden, if you have something like a Fluttermane or a Chiyu on the team, you know, you're kind of in this really weird position where Cali Shadow wants a Terra to get away from the Dark Pulses and the Shadow Balls. But if you do that, Koraidon is just going to, you know, fire off some collision courses into the Zamazenta, and it's not going to have a good day. Of course, here, you know, we see the conversion rate being kind of okay here with the Terra Ghost and the Cali Shadow. Of course, a fantastic combo, probably one of the best Terra Ghost partners. We see a little bit of HO here with Moridon, Cali Shadow. Definitely excited to see people expand on this a bit more. Then again, we see Koraidon, Terra Ghost. Not too bad, and then Zamazenta and Moridon. Again, these are pretty niche cores. I do think, like, yes, they're going to probably both be top 10 for the most part. But really, I would say these top 7 cores here are the cores to watch out for, at least early. Of course, I've seen a lot of Groudon. People are still playing that and kind of figuring it out. But again, we'll have to wait and kind of see how the metagame really develops to, I guess, see, you know, how people start countering some of these top teams, right? Because again, things like Assault Bear's Groudon actually have a pretty positive matchup into the top 2, especially when you pair it with something that has access to coaching, right? Which is something we've seen a bit, you know, rising up as well. Coaching into an AV Groudon, making that thing, you know, just impossible to kill. And again, things like Heat Crash into Cali Shadow can deal massive damage. In terms of the restricted usage here, again, nothing too surprising. I would say the biggest one for me is Zamazenta's usage being only at 6. I would have expected it to be a bit higher. But as we said earlier, I think Zamazenta's biggest thing, obviously, is it pairs so well with Cali Shadow. I am kind of surprised how many Cali Shadows were paired without it. But in saying that, you know, obviously Koraidon does fill that role, and we saw, you know, quite a bit of those. But yeah, of course, Zamazenta, I kind of expect to see it rise up a bit more. But then again, in saying that, I think, you know, these are just 4 more, like, these 4 here being both the Calis and the bikes, are both just pretty good on their own. And again, Lunala naturally supports all of them, bar Cali Shadow a bit better. So because of that, you know, I'm not too surprised here. Of course, we see Swordfish down here. We see Groudon poking its head in at 10th here. Only 8 Groudons in the event. And that's another big thing as well, right? You know, there's 265 players here. Only 8 of them brought Groudon. I kind of expect to see that rise up. But I definitely think looking at this here, you have between these 9 here, you know, your 9 best restricted. I am surprised Terra Ghost is above Groudon. But again, we're still early in the format. Things will kind of develop from here. In terms of the overall usage, Urshi Rapid has dropped quite a bit. Obviously, in the previous format, this mod was sitting at like 60% right at the end of Reg G. You know, we saw it kind of high. I still think it's a fantastic mon. But Incin right now definitely feels like the best unrestricted Pokemon in the current format. You have such a positive matchup into Cali and Lunala. Of course, you know, having Intimidate right now is pretty good. I'm a believer that I think Clear Amulet's a little overrated. A lot of these mons running Clear Amulet probably want different items. It's like, again, like you look at Groudon, yeah, you know, it's cool and all, but it's like, you probably just click Precipice Blades twice anyway and KO it, right? You're probably better off going for something like Assault Vest. Even like, you know, the Koraidons of the metagame, even if, you know, you get them to -1, you still don't want to eat a collision course on this thing in the sun. So, yeah, I definitely think Incin will continue to rise up, and I do expect to see Clear Amulet drop just a little bit. In terms of everything else here, you know, nothing is too surprising. I don't want to go like too in depth. I do think Urshi Single Strike definitely should rise up in usage a bit. I also think Roaring Moon here actually has a very cool place in the current metagame. I expect to see that rise up a little. Of course, we're seeing Brute Bonnet here as well. I think that's kind of just piggybacking off what happened at the previous regional, especially because it's ahead of Amoonguss, which I'm kind of shocked Amoonguss is this low, if I'm being honest. But yeah, like nothing too crazy. Chenpao's another one as well I actually think should be a little higher up. My goat Chiyu, though, coming in at 5th. I absolutely love to see that. But yeah, there's the usage stats. We've got another Weezing down here, some Dozo stuff. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. But yeah, I think let's flick over and look through some of the top teams. All right, so that was enough rambling out of me. So as we said, Shohei Kimura, the VGC 2023 World Champion, taking this event home, winning $900 as well, which is pretty damn nice. Running what is, again, one of the best cores in the metagame. Also, why is this looking like this? This is absolutely atrocious. Thank God I looked. Oh my God, why is it not 3 and 3? Wait, do I have to change something here? There we go. Okay, that was gonna really trigger me if I had to zoom out that far. All right, anyway, back onto it. So we look at this team here, right? Again, you've got the Dynamic Dura here, you've got the Zamazenta, you have the Cali Shadow. Terra Ghost is really interesting, but my assumption is this is for fake out stuff. Of course, obviously you've got your own Cali Shadow here as well, which is obviously very strong. We also see a pretty standard set here. This is just the Sash Terra Ghost stuff with Astral Barrage, Psychic, and Encore. This is a set I really enjoy. Obviously, this team here does not have an issue with Terra Ghost. I would say if you're running a more balanced team where you don't have, you know, 4 big physical damage dealers, Psyshock is obviously very good. Expanding Force as well if you are running something like Indeedee. But yeah, a really, really cool team here by Shohei. Obviously running the Terra Ghost, as we mentioned earlier, running double stab at wide guard and protect. I still am waiting for the day where someone starts running more Imprison Zamazenta. I get why people don't do it though. I think it's like, it's one of those things where like the heavy slam in certain matchups is just like, it's too good to pass on. And it's like, again, you see like a Terra Ghost Zamazenta and you're just like, hey, if I can just get Urshi in rain, it's like, it's going to be a GG. Of course, Tornadus here, one of the best supports in the game. Cool to see it picking up. I will say, I am becoming a bigger and bigger fan of Terra Dark right now. I think just having the option to just not like get taunted by opposing Tauns or Whimsicots or stuff like that is just, it's way too good, man. It's a good mon. Obviously, speed control is fantastic. Weather control right now is also really, really good. As I mentioned earlier, I do think one of the best callers into these two in particular is, of course, Koraidon, which I also mentioned. I just realized that's another reason for Ghost as well. So you could just ignore collision courses, and it's like, yeah, you're probably living a +1 flare blitz in the sun, even if they go Terra. So yeah, I think getting away from that fighting type, obviously fantastic. Having Rain Dance as well to get around, it's great. Of course, Urshifu, one of the best Pokemon in the game. It's essentially a third restricted on the team. You get this mon Terra Water in rain, it's gonna, just start running through the game. And of course, you also have Chen Pow as well, which is kind of like a pseudo rain anyway. Not as much damage, but obviously still very, very good. Of course, you have Ruler Fraud here. Look, it's one of those things where I do believe this mon is kind of fraudulent, but of course, you have Rhydon in the metagame. So just, I think having a way on these teams to deal with the, of course, the electric terrain is just, it's really important. And when you're running things like Aqua Jet, you've got double stab here with the Sucker and the Ice Shard. You probably don't want to run Indeedee. It gets a bit awkward. Not to mention, Rillaboom gives you an AV mon. It's got fake out support. Like I think on a team like this, it's just really, really good. And not to mention as well, having grassy terrain when you have things like Life Orb, Chen Power. Of course, you have the Focus Sash on Cali Shadow here. Could be very good just for that little bit of extra healing you get. And of course, Chen Power, Terra Stella, triple stab here, Life Orb. This one does a lot of damage, and it's really cool to see Shohei experimenting with the Life Orb. Because I've been a pretty big believer of Life Orb for quite a while now. This one has some incredibly good matchups. Like, if you look at some of the top teams here, right? Of course, very, very good into opposing Tornadus, right? You've got Ice Shard for things like Landorus. They basically just get one shot by it. Of course, as well, you have things like opposing Rillabooms here, which don't really enjoy it. Of course, Koraidons, if they don't Terra, don't enjoy it. You have things like Fluttermen that really don't want to eat like a Terra Stellar Life Orb. Sucker Punch. Again, that's like a big thing in this metagame. There are a lot of mods that don't want to eat a Terra Stellar Sucker Punch, man. Again, Cali Shadow, of course, we just mentioned that's very good. Even the Ogre-Pons, the Rillabooms don't want to deal with it. So, Koraidon obviously being a big one. Another thing too as well is like, if you Terra the Koraidon the Miraidon out of its electric weakness, then all of a sudden, like Terra Stellar Life Orb Sucker Punches into Cali Shadow is going to do, Cali Ice is going to do a lot of damage. So, it has some really, really good matchups with a lot of the top threats. Of course, another one being Lunala. So, it's really, really cool here to see Zine or Shohei here experimenting with it. Second place team here does have a little bit of smiggle. Now, this team, very, very similar to what we just looked at. The Terra Grass stuff, I do think is really interesting on Cali Shadow, especially when you pair it with the Rillaboom. The main reason is, like, one, Grass obviously gives you an immunity to Spore, which is obviously fantastic in the current metagame. Terra Grass, honestly, just a pretty solid neutral defensive typing. I will say the only issue I have with this, of course, is Koraidon. But, obviously they got second place with it, so that's still pretty good. But yeah, Terra Grass, +2 Giga Drain in grassy terrain is just kind of cracked. Of course, here we have a pretty standard Terra here on the Zamazenta as well. Terra Water is just good, mainly because of Urshifu, right? Of course, there's other things as well that it helps you into. It's just a very good neutral type. But I think right now, having a way to resist Surging Strikes on this mon is very, very important. Hence why we see Terra Water and Terra Dragon quite a bit. But everything else here is pretty simple, right? You have a pretty standard Smeagol set here. Of course, Fake Out, Spore, Follow Me, Wide Guard with Moody, Focus Sash, Terra Ghost, so you don't get faked out in return. Of course, you have a relatively standard Incin here. I'm guessing this is probably along the lines of the standard Impish 188, just so you can live things like Surging Strikes. And of course, you have Terra Water as well to really help you live them. Rocky Helmet normally as well is just, it's your answer into Urshi, right? Like, when you're in a team like this, where you're like, hey, my only switch in is Rillaboom, and I can't always have Rillaboom in the back. It's one of those ones you can switch it in. It can live the Surging Strikes as long as they're not boosted. And then you can also just deal 50% in return and kind of just put it in chip range of Cali. Also, that's another thing as well. Terra Grass gives you another Surging Strike resistance as well. Rillaboom standard set here, and of course Ogre-Pon Fire standard. This mod really, really good, and of course having the doubling up on the Grassy Glide when you have something like Rillaboom is just fantastic. So yeah, really, really cool team here. Obviously getting second place. And I will say, I'm really glad we're seeing people experimenting with the Cali Shadow Zama stuff, because for a long time, it was, you see Incin, you see Rillaboom, you see Urshifu, and then you see a flex slot, right? It was like Raging Bolt, it was Qian Powers, it was Tornaduses. You know, here we see a Smeagol, we see an Ogreborn Hearthflame. Ogre Hearthflame was kind of standard, I guess, as like that sixth mon on the team. But Shohei didn't have Insyn, and like I think a lot of people would like look at this core and be like, yeah, you need Insyn to slow some other stuff down. But Shohei's like, nah, I got the offense in the back, right? Like it's honestly like you could run these three here, Torn, Urshi, Chen Pao, and just like slap it with just Cali Shadow, and you're gonna have a good day, right? It's still very, very good. Another core here picking up as well is of course the Terra Ghost plus Koraidon stuff. Now, I do enjoy this because it kind of gives you two modes, and I've spoken about it in previous videos, I believe, where it's like you have this Koraidon HO mode where you've got Koraidon, you got the Sash Flooded main, you know, you've got the Raging Bolt, Insyn, or, you know, Ogreborn Hearthstone, whatever, you know, kind of fits the matchup. And it's like you can go really aggressive. And then like maybe game 2 you switch it up and just say, hey, I'm leading like Insyn Pagos. I'm just gonna go Calm Mind, Fake Out, you know, Protect, pivot into Ogreborn. I'm gonna go Follow Me, Calm Mind again, Protect, go back to Insyn. And then, you know, you just start playing these mind games of like, you know, is your opponent gonna go like super offensive with like the Koraidon Flutter main stuff? Or are they gonna go really defensive with Terra Ghost and kind of get up a Calm Mind or two and run through? So yeah, really, really cool stuff there. Obviously, it's a core that we are seeing pick up a little bit. And of course, I think Raging Bolt on these teams is just so sick. Like AV Bolt is like so nice right now. Like it's very, very good, obviously, into Kyogre, which can be one of Koraidon's, I don't want to say biggest issues, but Koraidon's one that has a pretty decent matchup into Zacian because of Terra Fire. But of course, you can't Terra Fire in front of a Kyogre, and because of that, you have things like the Raging Bolt here that says, hey, like, hey, I can threaten you, you know, put the pressure onto the Kyogre slot. And then, of course, just kind of allow the Koraidon to sit back to the late game and then eventually click the Terra Fire. So, really, really cool stuff here. The set is, for the most part, pretty standard. I will mention this because this is something I've seen rising up as well. Of course, Raging Bolt Snarl is like nothing too crazy. And I haven't actually looked at the Moridon teams down here either. But I have seen on ladder, especially like best of one, AV Moridon with Snarl rising up, just giving you a very positive matchup into Cali Shadow in particular. And of course, with AV, you're not that scared of the Zamazenta, right? You can make sure you outspeed it, and then you're able to change your moves, which I do think on a mon like Moridon is just very, very good. This is a really interesting team here, though. Because again, you've got this like really powerful Suncore again, where you got Koraidon, Fish, and Fluttermane, like all going offensive, right? You've got the Life Orb, you got the Choice Scarf, and you got the Focus Sash, right? Just three very, very good offensive pieces. Of course, Brute Bonnet is another one that's very, very good in Sun. I think a lot of people started realizing, especially towards the end of Regulation G, that like, hey, like Terra Water Brute Bonnet's very, very good. It's a mon that's also very, very solid into the Kyogre stuff, right? Because like one, you already just have a really positive matchup into Kyogre, especially if you can have that weather control. But two, even into the Zacians on those teams, right? You can go Terra Water, right? That allows you just to, you know, eat potential Surging Strikes out of the Urshifus who are the friends, obviously Tornadus as well. Put stuff to sleep, and of course the Zacian, which I just mentioned. Terra Water allows you to resist the Behemoth Blashes, or Behemoth Blades, sorry. And of course it allows you just to not get one-tapped by the play roughs. And of course another cool thing on these teams as well is they are running, I believe, like max defense, or like very defensive, so they get the defense boost in Sun. Which is, again, also very, very good for things like Cali Ice. It basically just allows you to, like, tank a hit from them and put them to sleep. So, yeah, very, very cool stuff. And then, again, you just have this Trick Room mode where it's like, hey, I can go Koraidon, Fish, Fluttermane, and then, like, one of my two supports being, like, Luna or Brute Bonnet. Or I can just switch it up, go to the Trick Room mode. You have Lunala, Ursaluna, Brute Bonnet, and, like, Koraidon. You're like, okay, now I'm going, like, really, really slow. And again, it's really good. Ursaluna is just a fantastic one in the metagame. It can threaten a lot of damage into the Zamazentas and the Zacians, which is obviously very, very good. And of course, Lunala here is just the one that kind of just plays both, right? Like, this is a one where you can sit it on the board and you're just going to go, hey, I'm going to Meteor Beam next to my Chiyu and it's going to be a good time. Or I'm just going to get up Trick Room, you know, support the Ursaluna, support the Brute Bonnet. I can just Wide Guard next to my Koraidon while it clicks buttons. Just a very, very good mon, man. And then we have some other stuff down here. You know, Joel running a the Cali Shadow plus Terra Ghost stuff here. Really, really cool thing to look at here is the Will-O-Wisp here and the Pollen Puff. This is just really cool because, like, again, it's Cali Shadow, it's Terra Ghost. It can shit out damage, right? You've got the Ruler, you got the Insyn, right? You're like, hey, I'm just going to enable you to deal some damage. Maybe you get a +1 and +2 and you just roll through the game. And then you're like, hey, my Terra Ghost, it's my win condition. I'm going to burn you know, your fighting types. I'm going to burn the Koraidon. I'm going to burn the you know, things like the Chen Paos, the Rillabooms, you know, the Urshifus, whatever it might be, I'm going to burn them. And then I'm going to side Pollen Puff my Terra Ghost to make sure you never kill it. And I am faster than literally everything in the game that isn't choiced. So that is, like, obviously really, really cool. Of course, you have the defensive core here of the Insyn, Rilla, and Ogreborn. And then the Fluttermane here is just a very good support. You have Taunt, you have Thunderwave, you have Icy Wind. Basically just 4 very good supportive moves. And then you're like, hey, I have a Terrafarium Loom Blast to deal a bit of damage too. So yeah, this is a really, really cool take on the team. I'm a big fan of these Cali Shadows that are like playing support, because while I do think it is nice to have a psychic stab move, like, I don't know if you guys are like played around with it, but like, there are insins that just get like 3-shot by Terra Ghost Ashras pretty comfortably. So it's like, yeah, you pair it up next to, say, something like, you know, in this case, like an Ogre-Pon, and then you just got like Terra Ghost, Astral, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, Insin can't play the game. Or you go like Astral, follow me into like Astral, Ivy Cudgel, and the Insin's gone. Same thing goes for like Rillaboom, right? You just go like fake out Astral, and then, you know, protect Woodhammer, and then just like Astral, and it's just gone. So yeah, like even the counters right now don't really eat the Terra Ghost Astral Barrage that well. Like it's one of those funny things as someone who's been testing a lot of Focus Sash Cali, is like they get their Insin in, and then you just kind of like Astral it, and then it's like, oh, they're on like 40%. And if you ever get any chip with them on next to it, then it's just, it gets even lower, and it's yeah, honestly, it's pretty damn funny. But yeah, really cool take there. It's cool to see Terra Ghost rising up as well with Cali Shadow, because I didn't mention it there, but I think one of the best reasons why these two mons work so well together in particular is Terra Ghost is just the mon that, like, it wants a Terra Hog, and Cali Shadow really doesn't need some Terra. This team here, though, another team very, very similar to what I've personally been testing. I will say this is kind of crazy here, seeing the substitute, but I get it. But I think Cali Shadow plus Indeedee is just so freaking good right now. Terra Water Indeedee as well is very good into Trick Room stuff. Like, you look at this team here, like, let's be honest, it doesn't have a good Trick Room matchup, right? Your answer to it is literally just going Terra Water and clicking reverse Trick Room in front of the Cali Ices, which I do think is kind of funny. But other than that, just, again, pretty standard. You have these just 3 very good hyper offensive mons. You have some really good supports with Whimsicott and Indeedee, and then you have this Brute Bonnet that kind of just goes both ways, right? It's like, hey, I can deal some damage with Sucker Punch and Seed Bomb. I can also just Terra Water and just put everything to sleep on the Trick Room. And I think having Indeedee Brute Bonnet as well together is very good, because, again, Brute Bonnet, it's the one mon it kind of doesn't want to deal with is the Moridons, and of course, just having Indeedee means you can swap that terrain, which is very, very solid. Anything else? Of course, yeah. To round it out, at least in the top 8, we have the 2 Cali Ice teams. Now, these teams are interesting. So here we see the Choice Specs Terra Fairy stuff, pretty standard. Terra Fire, with, you know, again, the standard set, the Glacial plus high horsepower. Terra Fire is definitely probably the way to go. I think Will-O-Wisp right now is kind of everywhere. And if I'm being honest, I think Fire is just a very solid neutral typing on this mon. You got things here like the Terra Bug, Iron Hands, of course, you know, out here with its, you know, low kick and whatnot. It has Wild Charge as well. I will say it's interesting. I have seen a lot of them dropping Heavy Slam, and I don't mind it right now. I do think having Wild Charge again is pretty good, just because it's a very strong move, and it just deals really good damage into a lot of neutral types, especially things that resist things like low kick. You know, a Wild Charge in terrain off this mon is just absolutely absurd. Of course, Ogre-Pon Cornerstone here, just showing why it's one of the best defensive, you know, pieces in the game. Of course, we have the Farigiraf here. I still think very good on these teams, right? It just enables that Trick Room mode so goddamn well. And then finally, you have Iron Valiant. And I'll say this. Iron Valiant Cali Ice is going to be one of the most frustrating combos to play into, because half the time you just don't know what they're going to do. It's like, oh, okay, you know, they're going to, like, you know, Trick Room Wide Guard, and then they just, like, coaching Glacial Lance you. Or you're, like, double the Cali, and then they just, you know, they just, like, coaching it. They protect and coaching. Or, like, you know, they just say, hey, I'm just going to Moonblast something with my Iron Valiant. And, of course, the mon gets boosted by Moridon. So, like, that's always a pretty damn good thing. But yeah, this here is just a really, really cool take, right? Of course, you got that 3-mon Trick Room mode, and you got just the 3 really fast mons here with essentially double Focus Sash and a Moridon. So, yeah, really, really cool take on the team. And then this one here by Marco, of course, a more balanced take on the squad. AV Insin, I will say, I'm a big fan of Insin on this mon. Sorry, on these Moridon teams. I personally tested quite a bit of Insin in Regulation G. I think with Moridon, it's absolutely cracked. And again, on this team, it's just kind of freaking good, man. You have this Trick Room mode where you can still go Cali Ice, Giraffe. Focus Sash Urshi, surprisingly very good under Trick Room. Because again, a lot of these, you know, defensive teams really want to, you know, sorry, the really offensive teams, sorry, are going to be like normally naturally faster than a Sash Urshifu. But then of course, you know, you pair this up with some support, you pair it up with Fake Out and whatnot, and this mon is still an absolute beast. And then the Scarf Lander, I think just really consistent. Having Landorus is just, it's really good for the mirror. Of course, you don't have a very good matchup into Cali Ice. But of course, you have Terra Water, kind of helps out there. And of course, with the Choice Scarf, you outspeed a lot of Moridons. But yeah, a more balanced take on the team. Of course, your speed control here is Trick Room. But for the most part, you're probably not clicking Trick Room anyway. Like, you've got, you know, 2 really fast pieces. Again, the Urshi, if you want to, sometimes can. Obviously, you click the Terra. But it's not, sorry, the play under the Trick Room. But it doesn't always have to. But yeah, just another really solid team here by Marco. This is, like, pretty close to what I kind of expect the new, like, Trick Room mode to go. I think we'll see people experiment with the Landorus slot in particular. But I would say this core 5 here is just, it's really freaking cool. Now, I don't want to keep you guys here all day. I've already been yapping for a freaking hot minute right now. But we'll briefly just take a look at some of these teams here. Of course, the bottom 3 teams are literally all almost identical to Shohei's outside of this Raging Bolt, so we don't need to touch on them too much, I don't think. This here, obviously, it's just a solid variant of Sunray. You got that HO mode, but this version of it doesn't just die to Trick Room quite like the Cali Shadow variant does, where it's like, hey, I've got Lunala, pretty good mon under Trick Room. I got the Brute Bonnet, he can play under Trick Room. And then a Shell Bell Ditto, which is kind of crazy. Terra Normal, of course, very good into opposing Cali Shadows. But yeah, a pretty cool take on Sun here. I do really like the Lunala as well. And again, I think Lunala is just like a mon that you kind of slap on if you just have a really bad matchup into Cali Shadow. Which is pretty funny because it's like, it doesn't have the best matchup in the sense that it just dies to Ash Barrage. But of course, you can threaten it back with Moonguy's Beam and just deal quite a bit of damage. This team here as well is like kind of another take I think we'll kind of see on these Moridon teams. I've seen this pop up quite a bit. I forget exactly who else I saw run this, but like I've seen the Leftovers Calm Mind stuff on Lunala. Definitely rising up with Dazzling Gleam. It's just very good in the current metagame. And again, you look at this team here, and it's just really, really good support, of course. This team here obviously doesn't have Trick Room, but you do have speed control on the Whimsicott. You have this pretty solid balance mode where you've got Rillaboom for Faker. You have a Volcarona here with Terra Dragon and Rocky Helmet plus Redirection, which I do think is very good. Of course, more Will-O-Wisp, which again, I expect to rise up, you know, or to continue seeing rise up. And then, of course, Urshi Dark. This is the mon I predict will rise up more on these Moridon teams. I love Urshi Rapid, but I think Urshi Dark on these teams is just very, very good. Especially on both variants with the Cali Ice and the Lunala. So definitely cool to see this here get day 2, or sorry, top cut. But yeah, just another cool take on the team. I do think having an option like Lunala that sets up alongside Moridon is just very, very good. And then the last main team we'll look at here is Ryan Sable VGC. One of the GOATs in the scene, running a very supportive Cali. I did see this earlier here. Running Astral Barrage, Protect, and Encore, I do think is really cool. Of course, running Kyogre, which is kind of a staple for him at the minute. The standard Fire, Water, Grasping, Instant, Rilla, and Urshi, which kind of crazy. Is that the first Instant Urshi Rilla we've seen here? Hold on. Yeah, so no Instant, no Urshi, no Rilla or Urshi, no Rilla or Urshi, no Urshi. Yeah, not there. No Rilla, no Instant. Yeah, they're literally the only one in top 16 with what a lot of people would consider the standard Fire, Water, Grass. And then finally here, Roaring Moon. Again, another mon I expect to see rise up. It just, with Terra, like with the booster energy, just has such a positive matchup into Cali Shadow that I just don't think it can be bad. And when you have access to things like Terra Flying, it just enables you to like eat things like, you know, the heavy slams coming out, the body presses coming out of the Zama centers. And then you just always outspeed the Calis. You just threaten massive damage into them with knockoff. And a lot of the time, you know, if they're Focus Sash, a lot of them are going for Terra Ghost, right? If they're, you know, Life Orb, yeah, sure, they're going to be Terra Normal, Terra Dark. But you just knock them off anyway. They lose their Life Orb. They still take good damage because they're not that defensive. So yeah, this is a mon I expect to kind of see rise up a bit more. But yeah, really, really cool team here by Ryan. We'll quickly check these teams here. Obviously, slight variant here is the Focus Sash over the Life Orb. They've gone Life Orb on their Cali, though, kind of just switching that around. So slightly different to Shohei's. This is Crunch over Sucker Punch and Icicle Crash over Ice Spinner. I mean, I get it. Again, very, very similar to Shohei's team here. Going Terra Dragon on the Zamazenta as well. But yeah, still very, very similar. And then finally, the Raging Bolt on this team. Again, Raging Bolt's just like really good into things like Kyogre. It's also not too bad into the Sun stuff as well, especially when you have Terra Fairy on it. But yeah, this here looks pretty damn standard. Sash on the Power, Scarf on the Urshi, and of course the Life Orb here with Disable on the Cali. Disable Cali just so good into choice specs mons late game, man. It's kind of crazy. Is there any other players down here? Obviously, all these players are fantastic. You know, I sadly don't have time to go over all 37 of them. Cool to see Grimmsnarl here rise up. This is the one I expect to continue to see rising up, as of course Grimmsnarl, just, you know, screens in general, very good in the restricted metagame. Is this the Assault Vest one? I think. Yeah, AV. Yeah, so this is one of the Moridon sets we've seen rising up as well. Pairing it with the Sneasler, of course, pretty damn good. Shout out to the homie Jonsu here, actually getting 7-3, getting 17th with Koraidon, Cali Shadow. Very, very cool take here. We see the Incin, the Brute Bonnet, of course, the Raging Bolt. My guy's one of the GOATs. He is a very, very good player. We see a Ho-Oh here as well. We see some more Koraidon, Lunala stuff. Dicky, shout out to Dicky here, you know, running a bit of Moridon, Cali Ice, and Rain. I'm guessing that's an Urshi Rapid then, of course. Yeah, Scarf Urshi Rapid, dude. This here, like this here, Pelipper Urshi, that's just like having another restricted. You have coaching as well for the Urshi and for the Cali. You love to see it. That's really sick. Anything else here? We have a Cresselia on a Zacian Terra Pagos team. That's kind of crazy. We have some Iron Treads getting played. Dude, we see a Lunala a Lunala Zacian with Chiyu. Is this gonna be Rain Dance on the... Yeah, dude, this is a Scooteezy tech right here. You run Rain Dance Tornadus on your Chiyu team. I love that. That is something I used to do so much back in the day. We see Araquanid, the real counter to Cali Shadow plus Zamazenta. We see some more Roaring Moon on the Kyogre teams, and we see a little bit more screens here. I will say, expect Moridon to be the one who abuses screens the most. Yeah, you see both the Grim Styles here with both on Moridon teams. Oh, actually, there's another one here on a Moridon team, but we have one on a Terra Pagos team. I guess that's another one pretty good with it. Yeah, I think that's gonna be it, guys. Obviously, you know, we are now, what, like 3 weeks technically into the pre-format for Regulation I. I've rambled on long enough, guys. Let me know down below what you think. Let me know if there's any teams that you are kind of expecting to see rise up. Let me know if you think there's anything that can drop off. And yeah, let me know what your answers to Cali Shadow Zamazenta are, because if you're not running Lunala right now, it feels pretty damn rough. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, anyways, that's it for this one. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.